Those of you that are pastors, what this man is about to say is going to make some of you really, really angry.
Poverty does not die by fire. It dies by hard work or smart work. And there is no amount of money that you ever get by prayer that will make you rich, and sustainably so. We must understand that in this life, it is not lived by miracles. Life is lived by facing realities and applying the laws that are in place in order to live better. And that miracles sometimes may come when we are in extreme situations that only God can intervene. But generally, life was never meant to be lived by miracles. You can get a miracle, but that miracle is not sustainable. In that, if you get healed today and you go live your life anyhow without taking care of yourself, without paying attention to basic hygiene, it is very possible that you're going to end up sick again. That is why miracles are not sustainable if you flack the laws of life. One of the things we must also understand is that Christianity, and particularly African Christianity, seems to have taken away the ability to critically think through everything in life, as we are all pushed to just believe and not ask questions. And we all know that the only place where you don't have the right to ask questions is a cult. And so wherever you go to that is called a church and that you're not allowed to ask questions, you should quickly know that you are in a cult. And it is this attitude of pushing people to just believe without asking questions that have given charlatans and false prophets to have avenues on the pulpit to say whatever they want to say. This is the very reason why most of the people who are pastors today are very unschooled people. Most of them were school dropouts. Most of them never had the opportunity of even studying theology in the first place. And they are parading in all over the place with all manner of teachings. And because people too are unschooled and they are pushed to just believe without questioning, we get to absorb just whatever is being said. How will you imagine that somebody tells his congregant to drink fuel as a means of getting healed? How will you explain the fact that believers are asked to eat grass as a way of getting a miracle from God? How will you explain that somebody stands in church and picks up his phone and says he's calling God and that God has spoken and he's speaking on the other side of the phone, and yet there are people who believe? It is because suppose Christians have successfully been made to act like zombies. Everything that a supposed pastor say, they must hear, believe, and follow without questioning. And anytime you tend to question anything a supposed man of God says, you are seen as a rebel or you are labeled as someone who is fighting the church. We've heard stories how families have been divided because supposed prophecies have been given. We've heard stories how people's lives have been ruined because a pastor just stands somewhere and claims to be speaking by prophecy and then destroyed somebody's life. And the question is, in Africa, how long are we going to keep living like this in the guise of being Christian? Somebody once says that Christianity came to Rome as politics when it came to that Christianity in Rome was religion. When it came to the West, it was politics. But when it got into Africa, it became business. And that is why literally in church, everything is sellable. From selling handkerchief to selling oil to selling water to selling towels they call mantles. Everything. In fact, the church has become a marketplace. And this reminds me of what Jesus did when he came into the temple and saw people buying and selling. He had to scatter them and send them out. And he said one thing: my Father's house was meant to be a house of prayer, not a house for robbers. Meaning that anybody who is buying and selling in church is a robber. It's literally a thief. Today, the purpose for which Jesus came have been relegated to the corner, and what makes the pastor rich is what's important. For example, you hear today somebody will tell you if you do not pay tithe, you will go to hell. How do we equate the blood of Jesus with money? In fact, in heaven, God does not use money and God does not need money. And the reason for which people do this is because they want to corner people to a position where they are overwhelmed by fear, and then they tend to give out of fear, not because they love God.
Deep.
Lots and lots of people are in church today not because they care about the God of the church, but because they care about what the God of the church can give. And that is why people come to church, because they are told that when you come to church, you get blessed. And so when you come and you do not get the blessing, the next thing is that you start looking for it somewhere else. Or people come to church and give because they are told that if you give, you will get a financial miracle. In some sort, they are saying God is dealing with trade by barter. You give to God, God multiplies and gives to you in return. God is not 1xbet where you have to play and win. No. You either give to God out of love, or you give to God expecting something and you never have it, and then you end up being discouraged that God does not care. And one of the things we've been cornered to believe is that givers never lack. That is a lie. Givers lack, and givers have actually gone broke because of giving. And we've also been told that when you give in church, you will prosper. There is nobody on the face of the earth that has prospered by giving. Haven't you observed that most of those who preach that when you give to God you will prosper, they end up asking you to give to the man of God, and at the end of the day only the man of God prospers, while the giver never prospers? Why? Because it is always living from the people to the main man who is asking them to sow in his life. And the question I've often asked is, why is it that in all of Jesus's life he never asked for money to make anybody prosperous, to make anybody rich? If Jesus was that anointed as God and didn't make people rich financially, materially, who is a man to think that by giving to him will make the person rich? Jesus did not have sin, remember. And we, all of us, have sins. Even pastors have sins. And then Jesus, who was that powerful, couldn't do that to anybody.
What of the miracle of Jesus asking his disciples to throw their nets to cast their nets in the sea, and they got more fishes?
That is simply about provision that God provides. And you can't live your life basically by sitting and waiting that God will provide for you.
Continuously.
These were people who were actively at work. And Jesus came and met them and realized that they have toiled the whole night and didn't catch any fish. So to prove that he actually cares about them, he decided to perform a miracle to be able to satisfy their work that they have worked throughout the night. In fact, God does not bless a lazy man. Primarily, check everybody God blessed in the Bible. That person was found doing something and God blessed it.
Those of you that are always in church, pastors say miracle money is coming. Sir, please talk about it.
There's no miracle money. In fact, miracle money does not exist. Money is an exchange of value, and God does not use money. God does not need money.